Have you ever noticed how everyone has advice for your life? Your parents, your teachers, your friends, people online. Everyone has an opinion on what you should do, but almost no one teaches you how to make the decision yourself. And I honestly think that's why so many people end up regretting colleges, careers, relationships, even the money they spend. Not because they weren't smart, but because no one gave them a process for thinking through life's biggest decisions. Hey, I'm Jaden. Welcome to the Mindful Major. And I believe that students do not need more opinions. They need better decision-making skills. Because one day your parents, your teachers, your friends, everybody else, they're not going to be making the decisions for you, and you have to live with every decision you make for the rest of your life. And that's why I built the Mindful Decision Framework. So if you've watched my video on why I regret my master's degree, you'll notice something important. I didn't regret learning, but I did regret making a really big life decision and not having a process for thinking through it. And looking back, that wasn't the only time. Choosing a major, transferring schools, going into real estate, joining corporate. All of those decisions are and felt huge. Yet no one ever taught me how to think through them. And that's what eventually became this framework. Now, I've said this before. When I ask someone for advice, I'm actually not looking for them to tell me what to do. I'm trying to understand how they're thinking. Because if I understand their thought process, I can compare it to mine. Maybe they realized something that I might have missed. Maybe they asked a question that I never thought to ask. Those are the kind of things that helps me grow. Not by borrowing someone else's answer, but improving my own thinking. So I asked myself a simple question. I said, if someone came to me with a huge life decision, how would I want to walk them through that process? And that's how I came up with the Mindful Decision Framework. It's an 8-step process that helps you get super clear on what your true decision is and to get you taking your next actionable steps, which is the most essential part. So let's break it down. Step 1, define your decision. Now, this sounds super simple, but it's actually where a lot of people end up going wrong. For example, someone's trying to decide whether they want to go to graduate school. But the real decision might just be, how do I find more direction in my career? Or maybe they're deciding whether to transfer colleges. But the real question is, what kind of environment will help me become the person that I want to be? Every good decision starts by defining the real underlying question. Step 2, discover your why. Before choosing an option, ask yourself, what am I hoping this decision will give me? Is your goal security, freedom, validation, purpose? Because if you misunderstand your motivation, you'll often end up chasing the wrong solution. Step 3, prioritize your values. You cannot compare any of those options that you just chose until you know what matters most. For example, when you're choosing a college, maybe flexibility matters more than prestige. Maybe graduating debt-free matters more than attending your dream school. Once you know your values, they become the filter on how you evaluate every option. Step 4, explore your options. Now, usually we often only consider 2 choices, when really there's usually a third, a fourth, and maybe even a completely different path that you didn't take into consideration. So be open-minded and stay curious, because that often leads to better decisions overall. Step 5, compare your top 3. Now, step 5 is usually where we have our emotions come into play, and that's very normal. Instead of asking which decision makes me feel the most excited today, compare each option intentionally. Which one is going to align more with your values? Which one actually solves the problem that you were thinking about in step 1? Which one creates the life that you're actually trying to build? Step 6, challenge your thinking. This one might be the hardest step, but with repetition, I promise it gets easier. Ask yourself, is this really what I want? Or am I trying to fulfill someone else's expectations? Separate your own voice from fear, pressure, comparison, and expectations, because that's where clarity starts. Step 7, make your decision. Okay, so eventually you're gonna have to choose. Not because you're 100% certain, but because you've done the work. Confidence doesn't come from knowing the future. It all comes from trusting the process. And finally, step 8, take your next step. Now, all that work you just did doesn't mean anything until you take action. You do not need to know every single step. You just need to know your next one. Because that clarity becomes confidence when you move. Now, before you ask, I don't believe there's a perfect path for everyone. But I do believe there's always an intentional one. And that's exactly why I created the Mindful Decision Framework. Not to tell you what to do, but to help you become the person that can make thoughtful decisions on their own. The playbook isn't about giving you answers, it's about helping you ask better questions so that you can discover your own. And you can download that for free using the link in the description box. And if you're ready for a step-by-step process on how to organize those answers and move from reflection to action, that's exactly what the Mindful Decision Framework workbook is designed to help you do. And the first person to comment this emoji with their correct email will receive the Mindful Decision Framework for free. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.